and deputy heads of foreign international diplomatic missions in Kosovo, honorable government and assembly members, colleagues from civil society, esteemed media representatives, and friends, it is a privilege to stand before all of you today for the third year in a row at the opening of the largest regional event in Kosovo. As I reflect on this moment, I feel both pride and a deep sense of accomplishment. When we first envisioned the summit, it was during a time of significant political and social challenges that threatened dialogue at every level. Regrettably, those challenges have only intensified over the past 3 years. And yet, here we are, resisting, growing, and prevailing. The organizers of the Kosovo Peace and Democracy Summit are investing immense effort to keep at least track 2 dialogue channels open and strengthen civic initiatives that aim to be inclusive. While this should not have been a struggle, it has been. Each of the 3 partner organizations have faced unique obstacles, ranging from discreditation and smear campaigns to technological sabotage and increased security measures that frankly feel more like intimidation tactics. And yet, despite these hurdles, we are here. More importantly, you are here. Our work is often slow to yield tangible results, but we have seen enough progress to inspire us to continue, even when the personal cost is high. For this, I owe immense gratitude to my dedicated team, to our committed partners, to our generous donors, the National Endowment for Democracy, the German Federal Foreign Office, the Rockefeller Brothers Fund and Smart Balkans, our esteemed panelists, and each and every one of you in this room today. Together, all of you can help keep us anchored, remind us to put citizens and their dignified life at the forefront of our daily work, because if we lose sight of human dignity, we lose both peace and democracy. NSI and our partners KCSS and Sbanker stand against that, and we will strive to remain a rare healthy tissue of our damaged, dialogue-deprived social fabric. I hope that this event we put together over the next 2 days satisfies your professional curiosity, inspires you, and helps us understand each other better, but above all, encourages you to keep up the good work. Thank you for being here, and enjoy the summit.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear ambassadors, dear institutional representatives, colleagues from civil society, from supporters of this event. KCSS is delighted to be one of the co-organizers of Kosovo Peace and Democracy Summit, now for the 3rd time on the road. We, as an organization, have invested several years in enhancing regional stability, security, and prosperity. KCS has contributed and participated in various projects in the benefit of regional cooperation. KPDS is certainly a growing platform which unites think tanks from different communities in Kosovo with a shared goal of promoting multi-ethnicity, a value being increasingly challenged in our region. This is a genius platform of what I would call a second-track diplomacy, because it provides alternative space for intellectuals from Kosovo and the region to contribute with their perspectives and how to further enhance trust between communities. When speaking of disputes, KCSS promotes actively normalization of a relation between Kosovo and Serbia, and undoubtedly the agreement that has been reached in the Brussels and its annex in Ohrid manifests an acceptable document that we commend the instances of Kosovo government in its full implementation and, if possible, in its signatures. The existing dialogue process should be framed on the basis of balanced implementation of the agreement. While we remain critical of the steps of Kosovo government when it comes to the participation in dialogue. We also have been deeply disappointed with the a letter of former Prime Minister of Serbia formally withdrew from dialogue, which later was claimed that this letter has been withdrawn. We hope that the process of normalization will go on track quickly, and we hope that we as a civil society will be able to provide contribution that this process of normalization get on track as soon as possible. Our goal with this event is also to send positive messages when it comes to ensuring that the process of the normalization in the region and normalization in Kosovo goes in track as soon as possible. We look forward to productive discussion in the KPDS and hope that messages that come from this event are going to help to the process of both internal and regional healing when it comes to improving of the relations in the regional level. Thank you very much, and we hope that you will enjoy the event.
Thank you, Mentor, for your speech, and Jovana. Now we are honored to have the U.S. Ambassador to Kosovo and the German Ambassador to Kosovo give keynote address to this event. The two countries that have been a cornerstone of supporting democratic development in Kosovo and have been our best friends. And so please, Ambassador Hovenier, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. I find always at the starts of these things, it's kind of like the morning after a party. Everybody's slightly hungover and doesn't quite know how the day is going to go. You've got a little bit of coffee in your systems, but you're just not sure, and you're conserving energy. So I hope to bring a little bit of energy to get this conversation started. I'm honored to join you all today. My colleague, Ambassador Rohde, all of you. This event is a reminder of the indispensable role that civil society can play, must play, does play in advancing democracy and attracting and shaping the future of this region. Can I just make a point really quick on civil society? Because I occasionally meet with people here who are in civil society, and they will say something like, I am just a member of civil society, I can't affect change, or we write our paper, we do things. May I remind you, people who've been members of civil society would include Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, Alexander Hamilton, Mahatma Gandhi, Vladimir Lenin. I could go on. Civil society changes the world. It has, it does, it will. And this gathering is another opportunity for the civil society of Kosovo to come together to help change a difficult circumstance, to make a better life for all of the citizens of this country without regard to ethnicity. I think that's incredibly valuable. I think it's incredibly powerful, and we commend you for it, and we're proud to be here sponsoring, supporting these events. So these efforts to foster good neighborly relations, to foster economic cooperation, to ensure that voices that are not always heard are heard and taken seriously and factor into what happens are critically important. What I don't want to do this morning in the 4 minutes I have remaining is spend a lot of time talking about things that I've talked about a lot before. For those who've been in Kosovo for a while, you're probably familiar with some of the messages from the United States right now of how we see the circumstance in the effort to advance a normalized relationship between Kosovo and Serbia with the ultimate goal of mutual recognition. That remains the goal of the United States of America, pure and simple. I don't think I need to spend a lot of time laying out some of the concerns we have with policy choices made in Belgrade and with policy choices made in Pristina. They are real, and we're on record. We expect both governments to act in complete compliance with all of the obligations they've entered into in the dialogue. We expect them to take dialogue seriously. I do want to make a point about dialogue. One of the things that I find surprising in my various conversations with various actors here in Kosovo is this unstated assumption that there is a path other than dialogue. Is this suggestion that if the Americans or the Germans or pick your favorite people would somehow just snap our fingers, wave a magic wand, have the right conversation, these problems would go away and Kosovo would immediately be a full member of NATO and a full member of the EU and all of the rest. You've heard it. The world doesn't work that way, and I got to be clear about that. So if it were up to the United States by ourselves, if we were imperial Rome at the height of its power and all countries bowed before us and did exactly what we directed, which is not the case in the world today. If you look around the globe, we still believe we exercise important influence around the planet, but we're not alone. We would see Kosovo more fully integrated right now into European and Euro-Atlantic institutions. Serbia would have come to greater terms with the reality of a sovereign, independent, multi-ethnic, democratic, peaceful neighbor to its south. That is what we want. But I don't see how you become a member of the EU without concurrence from the EU. And that means concurrence from the member states of the EU. I don't see how you become a full member of NATO without concurrence from all of the members of NATO. As you all know, some of those states still have not themselves officially accepted the reality of a sovereign, independent, democratic, multi-ethnic Kosovo the way we have. You got to convince them. We want to help. That means working in the process established by the very institutions. My grandfather had a saying once, and please pardon the slightly crass character to it, if you want to join a club, don't pee on the clubhouse door. My point would be, we want to support Kosovo in this approach. We want to support Kosovo in its European and Euro-Atlantic integration. We have done a lot, presidents, secretaries of state, ambassadors, others, to advance that. We know the aspirations, the very legitimate aspirations of the Kosovan people to achieve that. We want to help. We look to any government of Kosovo to give us the best possible arguments, the best possible ammunition in these conversations. The more we can show a sovereign, democratic, multi-ethnic, prosperous, successful democracy, the easier it is. So, a few things. I looked at your schedule. The things you're going to talk about, they feel like the right questions to me. I want to, if you'll indulge me for a few more moments, I want to give a couple of thoughts about some of the questions on your agenda, and then I'm going to be done. The first, I saw you have a session, I think right next, about does the dialogue need a reset? I'm so tired of that question. I'm so tired. It feels, one of my ambassadors I used to work for used to use the term all the time, navel gazing, something that, with all due respect to my European Union colleagues, you're very, very good at. Spending more time thinking about the internal machinations and functions of your internal decision-making process than actually thinking about the outcomes of the decisions and the strategic implications of that. That is not the American criticizing the EU. We do it too, but it's always easier to see it in the other. Stop the navel gazing, please, on the dialogue. If we didn't have this dialogue, we'd invent another one. Guess what it would have? It would have Kosovo. It would have Serbia. It would have the European Union facilitating it in some way because Kosovo's future is in Europe. And it would have support from the United States and other key partners. That's what we would invent. If we started from scratch tomorrow, what would we invent? What we have. What we need is a renewed commitment to the dialogue from everybody, the internationals, government of Kosovo, government of Serbia. What we need is an end to some of this entering into decisions without intentions to implement them. What we need is a seriousness and a purpose to this dialogue. So you can call it a reset, you can call it a recommitment, you can call it a new approach, you can call it a renewed approach, you can call it a more energetic approach. We absolutely need that. And we need that from all sides. I mean, we have a lot of opportunities for that. My government will change on January 20th. I can't tell you how it's going to change yet, but I guarantee it will. The European Union has now finished its elections with a new slate of leadership coming. It's an obvious moment to take stock of where we are and think about where we want to be and make some changes. I don't see the natural processes quite as much in Pristina or Belgrade right now. There will be elections in Kosovo, as we all know, in February. That could offer an opportunity, but I think this is more urgent of this renewed, reinvigorated approach. And I would say the same for Belgrade. We've got to get past perpetual crisis management. We've got to get past perpetual finger pointing. We've got to get past perpetual lack of readiness to look at how any one party might be part of the problem and think through solutions. Anyone who's spent any time in international relations and academic theory has spent time on theories of negotiations, and the most successful negotiators always are thinking about win-wins. They're always thinking about how do I get what I want, but how do I do it in a way so my colleague gets some what he wants to, because this isn't going to be a one-off. We have a process. We got to build some mutual benefit. Both sides have to show they've gotten something. Now, the United States wants to see that without any compromise in these fundamentals for Kosovo. It would not be a win for any change in Kosovo's sovereignty or its independence or its territorial integrity or its democracy. But it's also not a win when minority communities do not have their rights respected. I spent a lot of time in the Adasari process and since then working on these very important issues. So that's one theme I hope you'll talk a lot about. Second theme, sustaining Euro-Atlantic focus on the Western Balkans. Well, I only have a few things to say there. I would encourage this government, and I would encourage, it's not my job to encourage the government of Serbia, but I think it's good policy, to be very thoughtful with a new American leadership coming, with a new European Union leadership coming. How do you want to introduce yourselves? And how do you want to introduce this issue set to them? And perhaps you don't want to introduce it in a way that has a lot of finger pointing, I'm right, they're wrong, or perhaps you don't want to introduce it in a way where it's perpetual crisis management. This is a time to be thoughtful. This is a time to put the issues on the table, dispassionately, objectively, clearly, but introduce it as something that they are actually attracted to want to work on, not to something that they just feel like, oh, here's another problem we have to deal with. Third point, there's enormous opportunity right now. You have a panel, I think, potential, the EU Western Balkans Growth Plan. It's always dangerous when an American ambassador talks about a really significant European Union initiative. We don't vote, we don't pay, we aren't in it. So we get to have all the luxury of seeing the benefit from it without having to do a lot. Although we have given, surprisingly, our free and unsolicited advice. My point here is I think this is actually really powerful. I think the growth plan is an important tool to advance all the countries in the region the way the European Union hopes and wants. It's important that this be done well. It's important that the government of Kosovo, the government of Serbia, the other governments are serious in the reforms they put on the table and actually carry them out for the promise of growth and integration to the European common market, which is an amazingly positive thing for all countries. So I hope you will talk a little bit about that. We look forward to the outcomes of the next couple of days, to the extent my embassy, and I suspect I can speak for my colleague who's about to speak next anyway, but to the extent you have outcomes you would want policy leaders in Kosovo to be familiar with, we're happy to help ensure they are familiar with the outcomes of these conversations. I wish you luck, and I thank you for what you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you for a speech I think we all needed to hear, or at least I needed to hear, and giving us that energy in the morning as you promised. Next, I want to invite also a dear friend of KPDS and civil society in Kosovo and the region, German ambassador to Kosovo, Mr. Rohde.
Dear Giovanna, dear mentor, dear Badi, from the three organizing NGOs, you know, I'm standing here and we support you because we want you to keep up the good work. And it's always good to speak a second because then I can keep myself short. But I will speak about some things which I talked also about in last week's. You know, when I read the title, I thought instead of ethno-political dynamics, rather ethno-political dysfunctionalities would be a more fitting description of the current situation in the region. And I've been here now for 4 years, and, you know, seeing the ups and also the downs. And looking at the current Kosovo-Serbia relationship, you know, even today you see inflammatory statements, language, use of extreme positions. At least verbal tensions are flaring not only on the Kosovo-Serbia side, but also on other fronts in the region. I mean, you see on the weekend the Macedonia, Bulgaria spat on an opera visit, is there a missing flag or not, you know, and immediately you see statements. Or 2 days ago, announcement of Republika Srpska officials of new school books with a clearly ethno-nationalistic narrative. I mean, the others are not without guilt also. Or I wrote down here the recent speech of the Serbian president. The constant use of extreme terms, ethnic cleansing, repression, when describing the situation in the north is not helpful. Nor, in the summer, the banning of an NGO initiative, which has been successful, done for 2 years, the Meridita Dobar Dan Festival, for the first time banned to be held in Serbia. I see similar terms when Kosovo politicians describe the situation sometimes in the Preševo Valley. I mean, clearly there are things going on which are not helpful. Or, I see identity politics. Do you have to name streets in Banska on the day of the anniversary after the killed police officer? I'm not so sure. Yesterday, I attended with a lot of my fellow colleagues the commemorative events of the killed KP officer. This was really a watershed moment because you saw pure violence exhibited by malign actors. And as a result, we as friends of Kosovo, NATO has beefed up its security. And the good story here is that we see the possibility of malign actors to do harmful things violently considerably reduced. And I would echo what Jeff has said. The biggest obstacle to a normalization of relations is the total absence of political will at the moment to normalize relations. To put it, Serbia is basically defending the status quo and Kosovo wants to change it. And I would say rightfully so. Also Jeff has exposed. So we want a sovereign Kosovo and we want to achieve that Kosovo is a rightful member in all the organizations which are always mentioned, whether it's NATO, EU, or, the Council of Europe. Anyways, after 4 years, enough with pessimistic comments. I still think you use the right term, dynamic, because change is possible and we need to remain engaged. Staying put or containment is not an alternative, especially given Russia's also destructive behavior in this region. And what we need is integration, reconciliation, and compromise. And the road to achieve that is on the table. As Jeff said, there is no alternative to dialogue. When you have actors, you need to engage. And it's called, the Brussels Ohrid agreements. We need to re-engage urgently. There's this new team in Brussels to take up the enlargement chapter. And I say it again and again, Kosovo needs to be active on this ASMM issue because it's a clear path to integrate also the Kosovo Serb minority and also to show that Kosovo shows with this that for them this agreement is alive. Otherwise, the EU road remains elusive for both Kosovo and Serbia. You cannot convince members if you cannot achieve the minimum. And I'd like to say, if Kosovo or if the EU doesn't enlarge to the Western Balkans, the people of the Western Balkans will continue to move to the EU. They vote with their feet. And if I see our visa numbers, they are as high as in the last years, and that is not good for the region, and this goes for all Western Balkan countries. And we have great options at the moment on the table. We have the growth facility, I think close to 900 million for Kosovo, Serbia, several billions, other countries too. We have the Berlin process, as you have seen also publicly. My Western Balkan envoy is heavily engaged to reach a compromise before the summit on the 14th of October. We can block more or less a dozen agreements which are blocked since some years. And for me, the Council of Europe membership remains on the table. And this is especially important also, for minority rights and questions. And allow me as German ambassador to also promote a bit my country. I think it's not only that we, support platforms like this. We remain engaged. We want Kosovo, we want the region to succeed, to integrate fully into Europe. We are going, I would say, the extra mile. And I would like to pinpoint in this afternoon, we will have a public debate, press conference with where we publish a study by the German economic team, which is advising Kosovo's government also on the benefits of Kosovo joining the SEPA mechanism. It will benefit millions for Kosovo. And I mentioned already the Berlin process. We are working heavily to achieve tangible results. We just inaugurated a bilateral climate partnership with Kosovo. We have a regional one. And we continue to take up Kosovo's delegation, since Kosovo is not yet a UN member, in the as part of the German delegation together with GIZ in the climate COP negotiations. Allow me one last word on the role of NGOs. I think it's important. What is NGOs? You're part of society. Society needs to be active. There's an accommodation by the majority for the minority, but also vice versa. So my message also to, I would say, and specifically to all NGOs, but also to my minority NGOs, Kosovo is here to stay, and my message is integrate, integrate, integrate. We want, of course, parallel structures. You don't have Serbian or Kosovo post offices in Macedonia or North Macedonia or Serbia. And but the way forward is, as I said, again laid out in the Ohrid agreements. You do it in a way which is political, palpable to all sides. But boycotts, as done by official representatives of minority, is not the way forward. Kosovo government has reached out. Resigning from institutions. Was a mistake, is a mistake, and should not be repeated. And at the end, a simple sentence, language is a tool. Learn the languages of the minority and vice versa. The biggest language in the region is Serbo-Croat, but in this country, Albanian is the majority language. So you need also to accommodate the majority. And I think these are concrete tools. I grew up in Switzerland where everybody speaks 3 or 4 languages because there is accommodation. And we need to continue on this road. Last word, yesterday you saw this trust index published on the relationship between minority and majority. And one of the points was also integration, by the minority into Kosovo society, historic narratives, school books. And I want to close with, again, the word keep up the good work, and I wish you fruitful discussions, and I can support, or I can confirm, like the United States, whoever governs in Germany will stay on Kosovo's side. We will also stay engaged in the region, that rather sooner than later you will become full members of the Euro-Atlantic institutions. Thank you.
Very inspiring speeches, both. Thank you to both ambassadors, 2 countries that have really been strongest supporters.